rules have actually been brought in this season. Feigning injury to get an opponent sent off. What's new? A player who feigns injury actually could face a suspension. That's one rule that's actually been brought off now. Scenario, player A is sent off for violent conduct. Dismissal overturned after the referee reviews the incident and sees that player B has feigned injury. Player B is open to a charge and could face a 3-match ban. I'm going to come on to that one in a minute. In 2014, West Ham striker Andy Carroll was sent off after appearing to catch Swansea defender Chico Flores with his arm. So this is an example. Carroll's appeal was dismissed and the 3-game ban stood. If the ban had been overturned, Flores could now face a possible FA charge for feigning injury in order to get an opponent sent off. Arsene Wenger welcomes tougher action on feigning injury, and we also actually asked Darrell David, chairman of the newly formed AFA Youth Council, about this in our Pitch Talk Meets interview with him last week. Pitch Talk Meets Darrell David will be coming soon, so keep an eye out for that one. Big shout outs to Darrell as well at AFA Youth Council on Twitter. Give them a follow. Basically, Wenger said, "I'm a big fan of the new rule. With all the camera angles, it will be easier to punish players diving." Very good. I like that. Code of conduct for the technical area. Basically, scenario: manager kicks a bottle of water / waves an imaginary yellow card / a sarcastic clap. First step: warned about his conduct. Second step: sent to the stand. So in April 2014, Chelsea coach Rui Faria was sent to the stand by referee Mike Dean, having become incensed by the awarding of a penalty. Then Leicester City manager Nigel Pearson avoided an FA charge last season after clashing with Crystal Palace midfielder James McArthur, where he had him throttled on the floor. Now, Pearson would have been sent off for that. Surrounding match officials, I quite like this one. 2 or more players approach the match official in a confrontational manner. Club face charge if the incident is reported by the referee. Previously, the guideline was 3 or more players, but that's now been reduced. Aston Villa were charged by the FA last season for failing to control their players against Manchester United. I like that one as well. But this is the one that we've been alluding to all show. Offside law. What is new? Premier League states a player in an offside position shall be penalised if he, number 1, clearly attempts to play the ball which is close to him when this action impacts on an opponent, or number 2, makes an obvious action which clearly impacts on the ability of an opponent to play the ball. Keep those two both in mind. West Brom boss Tony Pulis claims the changes muddied the waters even more. It's so ambiguous, it's frightening. He's actually said it's not a rule. A rule is black and white, offside is not. It's going to be left to the referee's discretion. Now, one incident that's been used as an example from December 2nd, 2014. Man United 2, Stoke 1. Juan Mata's ball into the box is narrowly missed by Marcos Rojo, who's in an offside position, but the goal is awarded as he did not touch the ball. Now what would happen? There is a clear attempt to play the ball by Rojo. Although no contact is made with the ball, it was close enough to Rojo to impact on an opponent, in this case goalkeeper Asmir Begovic. United obviously would not have been celebrating the goal as it would be flagged offside. Keep that in mind. New offside rule good for football, says referees chief Mike Riley. The offside rule changes make it more understandable for fans and players, says referees chief Mike Riley. Footballers have previously been allowed to occupy offside positions without being punished in certain situations, depending on whether officials have deemed their roles to be actively involved in play or not. So, moving on. As said, the additional guidance for the offside rule: a player in an offside position shall be penalised if he makes an obvious action which clearly impacts the ability of an opponent to play the ball. Keep that in mind, because Christian Benteke goal should not have stood, says Straight Shootin LJA. But also, says the Premier League, from the 21st of August 2015, the Premier League has confirmed that Christian Benteke's goal for Liverpool against Bournemouth on Monday night should not have been given, and it shouldn't have. The league has revealed it has written to all top flight clubs this week to clarify the new interpretation of the offside law following Benteke's controversial goal in the 1-0 victory at Anfield. Benteke's close-range goal at Anfield was allowed to stand by referee Craig Pawson, despite teammate Philippe Coutinho having been stood in an offside position and attempted to play the ball. He made a clear attempt to play the ball, just missed it. Benteke was coming from an onside position, but Coutinho was offside when the ball was played. So the findings read: clear attempt to play the ball by red 10, Coutinho, stretches with his right leg in an attempt to play the ball. No contact is made with the ball, but the ball is close to red 10. Red 10's actions impact on an opponent, in this case the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper needs to delay his action and wait and see if the attacking player is in an offside position, /touches/plays the ball. Expected outcome: offside offence. Now, Crystal Palace had a Dwight Gale goal disallowed, as we mentioned earlier, as it hit James McArthur on its way in, and he was in an offside position. The linesman gave it as offside versus Aston Villa. So, Tony Pulis, I'm sure he's got a crystal ball, he's clairvoyant in some way, but we've been waiting to talk about this point for a few weeks because we were waiting for an incident to happen before really hitting it strong. But, muddying waters. Tony Pulis is right. Because the referees and the linesmen, the linesman, it is one of them ones where Rooney had a legit goal disallowed when he was level. So no benefit of the doubt given there. So linesmen are getting the old variants of the rule wrong in that match. And also Aaron Ramsey tonight is one of them ones where they're getting the old variant of the rule wrong. And then you had Benteke a week ago against Bournemouth, where they're getting the new interpretation of the rule wrong. So for me, it looks like this new rule has muddied the waters in waters that already were basically as black as tar as it is. So it's one of them ones. This is the thing with them. I mean, there was a completely different view said in Pitch Talk Meets Darrell David, but you're going to see that in his upcoming interview. But the fact of the matter is, as soon as I saw these rules come out, I was like, no, they're muddying the waters even more. You've got to boil this down and make it simpler. But the fact of the matter is, these waters have been muddied again. I'm with Tony Pulis on this. Because it's one of them. Dermot Gallagher and Mike Riley have welcomed it. But I'm sorry, I personally can't, because at the end of the day, if the linesmen are getting the old variants of the rule wrong, how can you expect that you actually are muddying the waters by adding another stipulation in? And again, it's not an offside rule or law because it's open to so much interpretation. And that's where the problem comes in. If a law is open to interpretation, then you're screwed, as I've said for many years. I'm personally not a fan of it. I might be speaking as part of the Defenders Union here, but the fact of the matter is, I'm not a fan of it. I think it's going to lead to a lot more botches. I really do. I really, really do. I mean, Gezzie Fizzle, do you want to have your view on the new offside rule? And are you an advocate of the other rules as well? Because I'm definitely an advocate punishing for simulation and retrospective punishment for feigning injury to get an opponent sent off. I totally advocate that. Players surrounding the referee, I totally advocate punishing for that as well. And it's one of them ones, the code of conduct for the technical area, I totally advocate those rules as well. But the offside one, I think they've botched on it. But what do you think?
I think for me, the offside rule has to go back to the original one.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
For me. Just because, when you started to bring in daylight and this, that, and the other, and he's not actively affecting play, all the rest of it, all that just made it far too complicated, in my opinion. Right? If he's ahead of the last defender, he's offside. Simple. Right? There's really not a lot of room for interpretation, and the other ones where discretion is really, really needed, they can have that applied to it, and that makes more sense. Whereas anything else now, the other rules, I will say to you, yeah, I'm in agreement with them, because I honestly think that referees need to, and officials generally need to have a lot more power, whereas currently I don't think that they have that, especially with the cases of players not only surrounding the referees but being abusive as well, which for me just shouldn't really work and shouldn't really stand at all, in my own personal opinion. So I think all of that is really useful. In terms of feigning injury, that one is, for me again, personally, is open to interpretation. right? And if you have a bit of a reputation and it happens to precede you just a bit, then I don't know how that works, because I can only see it working against you in that instance, you know. But with that, again, I just say, well, maybe, like you said, it just needs to be boiled down and made a lot simpler, you know, in the sense of, unless it's a serious injury and unless, you know, medical staff have come on to attend to you, then, you know, that's what the punishment will be. I think that as a kind of caveat to it probably work a bit better for me. But anything else, that particular one is open to interpretation, because it could very well be that an injury is, you know, seeming innocent enough, right? But because we don't know the full extent of it, initially we think, oh, well, he's just rolling around trying to get someone sent off, and then it turns out that, you know, there's a tear here, a tear there, microfracture here, microfracture there, and it's actually a lot more serious than what it was thought to be. And that only comes out afterwards, if it comes out at all. So, you know, for me, again, there's a lot of grey area there, and that's open to interpretation. So it remains to be seen. But overall, you know, I'm with you. I think that, you know, the rules are necessary, and you know, it's only going to be for the good of the game. But then I'd also ask, you know, if you're going to be able to go and bring in a retrospective element for, you know, play acting to get a player sent off, why are we not using that in other areas? Or enhancing the power of that in other areas? That's my question.
But then for me it's a case. For me it's a case of, yeah, I mean, retrospective punishment is one of them ones where it could be, as you said, it could be applied to a lot of other areas. I mean, if people are cheating, people are cheating. So if the referee or the linos don't spot it in motion, then you can punish retrospectively. And if you punish uniformly and in a draconian fashion, you start to get rid of things. So stuff like diving that a referee might not see, then you get rid of the problem if you start punishing for it. So it's one of them ones. It is a conundrum how as said, they keep adding stipulations onto the offside rule. I mean, if people who are students of the game, so to speak, are struggling with it, and if linesmen are botching it already, then obviously with anything you're going to have teething problems. But I would love to see how referees are actually being taught all of these interpretations of the offside rule. I would love to see that personally.
And I think you touched on an interesting point in that, you know, there are going to be teething problems, right? In the sense of, look, you know, even if we go back to something like Diego Maradona and the Hand of God incident in the World Cup, right? Back in '86, it's a matter of, well, look, that was obvious. Okay, that wasn't given for a multitude of reasons, turns out, but that wasn't given. So it's like, well, look, if you have something like that isn't given, then, you know, there are going to be other things. And like I say to you, all right, so maybe we go and we nail down the offside rule, right? We make it as simple as possible. There'll be other things in the course of the game, for example, that an official may or may not have in his match report, right? Where we'll say, well, if referees are being trained properly, then they should have caught this, and they should have seen this, and they should have done this. And, you know, I think the other thing, and Darrell David, he kind of touched on this briefly, is we kind of forget that referees, they're not robots. Same with their assistants, they're not robots, they're people, right? So if you and I are fallible in our day jobs, Okay, for lots of different things. Where, let's be honest, we're paid to know these things. Yeah, this is what we're getting the money for. And there are things where rightly or wrongly, we might not perform as well as we should. Then it's the same for referees and their assistants too, right? So if we're going to allow that kind of leeway for ourselves and for other people in different walks of life, and even in different sports, then what's the difference with a referee who's also a person? Whether they be a full-time professional referee and that's their job, or otherwise.
I mean, it's funny though, because Mike Harneman, who's just joined us, and Tom Wood, who's just joined us as well. Big shout outs to them too. And it's one of them ones. I mean, Mike Harneman has just said on in Skype that also Gezzie, the referees get only get one look, whereas we get endless replays, which is true.
Well, this is the other
there
thing.
You go. But then it makes you think, why not make the rule simpler to help the linos out? That's where I would come from on that.
Well, yeah, there is that, but then at the same time, right? Let's not forget there are a lot of decisions that have been given correctly, right? So you was talking about, you briefly mentioned Bournemouth's goal in inverted commas that was ruled out, right? Now you said, yeah, it was correctly ruled out. But for other people, and this is where the interpretation of the rule comes in, they say, maybe you got it wrong. Maybe it should have been a goal.
I mean, for me, Elphick was climbing. He legitimately had both hands up on Lovren and was using him as leverage to gain an unfair advantage so Lovren couldn't jump. There was one in the, I think, West Ham Bournemouth game that was disallowed for a similar thing, but this time it was against Bournemouth. So it was a West Ham goal that was chalked off for exactly the same thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm in agreement with that. So it's one of them ones. It's an interesting one to say.
And this is it. I mean, there's so many different things, right? Like, for example, shirt pulling in the penalty area. So what if that's not going to be done? I mean, some of it is akin to rugby tackling. In terms of a high waist tackle, some of the shenanigans that goes on in the penalty area. It's like, well, look, if that's not being punished, right, can we really go and complain about everything else, really? I think, in terms of the big kind of gripes and complaints that we have against a lot of the rules in terms of what's given or not given, or what's given but given inconsistently, so on and so forth. I think if the major list of those was drawn up and say the top 5 were dealt with more severe punishments, so on and so forth, I think those kinds of things would probably help officials more. But at the end of the day, as I said, and as Mike rightly pointed out, these guys have one look at it in real time, depending on the angle. And this is something that Darrell David mentioned. It could look like one thing because of the angle that you've got.
Yeah.
But what it is something else.
Yeah.
And you have to go and trust your judgment. And look, for the people that, as we said, have, several replays from several different angles and have all this analysis from all these other people in and around the game to go and influence you as well, don't forget, right? They don't have that. They don't have that luxury to get one take at it. They have to go and trust their judgment, or trust the judgment of their assistants or everybody together, and make a decision. That's it. And it almost has to happen instantaneously because there are no big pauses in football, like, for example, in American football, where you can go and throw a challenge, and depending on what it is, there's this big booth review where, one of the referees goes under a hood, looks at a replay for several minutes, and then makes a decision. Right? Maybe even have the lines, the chain gang come out and do a measurement as well. Right? So just in the comparison of those two sports, there's a very big difference in terms of the level of support. And I think sometimes, as I say, it's very easy for us to say, look, they're trained, they should get it right. And I'm quoting myself on that, not quoting anybody else. It's very easy to say that versus to understand, yes, while all of that's true, they're also human, they're not robots.
I mean,
right? And let's not forget, right? If we can be influenced by other things in and around our life, in and around our day, for us while we're at work, what's it like for a referee? Right? And obviously, you get told in any walk of life, in terms of your career and working life, you get told, well, you know, this has to be separate from this. You can't bring this into the workplace, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is that anybody who gets told that, anybody who actually cares to respond says, yeah, that's all well and good in theory, right? But the practice is, you know, I'll take home to work and I'll take work home, even when I don't mean to. So, as I say, again, I think it's more about looking at referees as people first, then referees, rather than saying, well, look, they're referees, they have the rules, they've been trained, like they're robots, and they should know it all. And as I say, I think it's just very easy to kind of gloss over that without necessarily dealing with that fact.
It is one of them ones where I mean, I said there is so much more we could actually discuss on this, but due to time we can't get as deep into it as we want to. But it's just a case of where there is so much room for maneuver and so many incongruities that it just makes things harder. It really does. I think it makes things harder for linesmen. Whereas if you boil it down and make it simple, it's nice and cool. But